All right, so as I said, let's dive in here. We're going to take a look at manufacturing instructions. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll take a look at the idea of Composer as it relates to being able to more efficiently achieve assembly instructions. Many of you may be doing manufacturing and assembly instructions in a manner that would look something like this, right? Engineering is doing their job, a prototype has to be created, and then at the end of the day, you're left to oftentimes start creating digital pictures of items so that you can show the floor how to actually create their product and assemble it. This tends to be a very linear process, right? Because typically a rapid prototype has to be made before you're able to start creating this information. And not to mention what happens if engineering makes a change. You have to understand which images have changed and recreate those images to update the manufacturing and the assembly instructions. So the proposed workflow that we can achieve with Composer is to allow this to happen in more of a parallel process. Something along the lines of being able to take the same type of document, but actually create and leverage the information off of the models directly. So here you can see that we've got a new, we'll just say for the sake of today's presentation, a new tape gun, a new design that we want to create the assembly instructions for. And maybe engineering is close to being done, but they're still in the process, but that's okay. We can kind of key things off. And so we're going to actually create some images to finish out this design. We're going to create a cover image. We'll create some one last step, as you can see here, for the tape wheel assembly. And then we'll do a few other interesting things along the way as well. So let's get started. Let me go ahead and pull up Composer, and we'll give it a go here. So how we start with Composer is we have the ability to basically do a file open and open the CAD files directly. And so what you'll see here is that we've just grabbed a SOLIDWORKS assembly, and we've brought it in, and we begin to work on it and manipulate it in a manner that is really independent of maybe what engineering is wanting to do. So for instance, if we want to create the cover image, we might want to highlight some things or maybe change the rendering a little bit. So that's one of the things Composer allows us to do. We can say, you know what, I want to show this more in a flat technical mode as opposed to shaded, or I want to show it in silhouette. And again, I'm not adjusting the engineering documentation in any way by doing this. Let's just go with a smooth rendering. We can also kind of clean it up a little bit, maybe tone down the shadows, turn on ambient occlusion so that the images actually cast shadows on each other. You know, if we wanted to add in a ground or a little bit of shadowing, a mirrored effect, any of that kind of thing can be added to these as well. Not to mention the fact that we can also change colors of the components, their opacity, any of the properties related to them. And this is a lot like setting up basically a photograph or a snapshot. Once I kind of get it looking the way I want, maybe I want to rotate it slightly or add some perspective to it just so that it pops out a little bit. Those are all things that we can do. And when I'm happy with what I've got for this shot, I'm going to go ahead and update the image. So we'll just go ahead and choose Update View. And that updates the snapshot, and it tracks it now. And so as I double click on images, you'll see that it remembers any of the states that I've created thus far, showing how this set of components is assembled. Right? So we've got a varying number of states showing the different steps. Maybe I want to go ahead and create another image live showing step 6, which is the wheel assembly. I'm just going to go back to maybe a view I started with. Again, maybe turn off a few of the rendering styles that we had going on and go to a flat technical. And I want to go ahead and create an exploded view of this. And so what I'm going to do is we'll just rotate this around, and we'll do a simple box select around these components. These are the ones I want to show in an exploded state. Maybe I'm going to leave this one out for now. This is another great thing about Composer is I can just grab onto a series of components and I'm able to explode them out, with just a simple click of the button. Now, if a component moves to a spot that I'm not, wanting it to move to, I can simply tell it to go back to where it was, and now I've got a nice start on an exploded view. I can also easily tweak these items, and what you'll notice about this is that really this is designed for someone who's not necessarily an engineer, and so we can simply tweak these items, position them where we want them to get a nice exploded view. We'll go ahead and also go ahead and author an arrow, maybe showing how these images, how these need to be assembled. So I can simply place the arrow on the screen. If I want to tweak information here, I can simply grab onto the handles on the arrow and maybe pull this information in a little bit. You'll notice that the arrow is also sitting on top of these components, and so maybe I want to clean that up a little bit. Composer is great because it'll actually figure out where the components start and stop, and I get a nice image. And so when I'm happy with that, we'll go ahead and create the view, and let's just call this step 6. So again, it's remembering that image. It's got that saved, and now with these, we're able to start saving these images out. But before we do, maybe one last thing that we also want to do for our assembly instructions is we want to be able to give them a parts list, components that they're going to need to be able to use. So again, we'll just go back to a standard start view that we began with here, and let's just create a parts list for this. What's nice about this is that Composer allows us to leverage any of the metadata associated with the CAD files. So all the descriptions, part numbers, those types of pieces of information are all available to us in Composer. So I'm going to go into my workshop and let's just create a parts list. Do it automatically. We'll just tell it to generate the BOM IDs. We can have it go ahead and show the parts list as well. And let's just go ahead and bring that up on the screen so that you can see it. We'll go into our BOM and turn it up here so you can actually see it. So now we've got our parts list on the screen, and change any of the information regarding the parts list so that it looks and feels how we want. And then we can also balloon out the assembly as well. And what's, again, nice about this is that you can see in the description here on the parts list, we're pulling in all the metadata associated with the CAD files. Let's go ahead and, as I said, let's balloon this out. We'll grab the components again, and we'll just have Composer place the balloons. We'll create the callouts. You can adjust the style if you don't like the black balloons, if you like white balloons, or you want to show something else in those callouts, you're more than welcome to. And so what's nice about this then as well is that we can actually create what's called a technical illustration or a vector graphic. And vector graphics are nice because of the fact that with a vector graphic, it's scalable. Now, in a pixelated image, you lose resolution, but in a vector graphic, you can scale it, and it does not lose its fidelity. And so we're going to go ahead and save that out as a vector graphic, and then we'll start to take a look at how we leverage the information that we've created in Composer for our manufacturing instructions. So we'll save it out. Let's also go ahead and save out our other images that we created. So our step 6, we're going to save out as a JPEG. We have full control over the output of the images, and this is a lot like if you imagine actually printing the photograph or the image. But in reality here, what we're just doing is a save as, and we'll save it out as our step 6. Just grab 5 and rename it. Save. And then we can also save out. We save that one out. We also want to save out the cover image that we created. So we'll just come back here and grab it as well, because we're going to include it. Okay. And so that looks good. And so let's go back into our Word document, and you'll kind of get a feel for what we can do. We'll go into our Word document, and from here, whether it's a Word document, whether it's your website, whatever it might be, it's an area that's very familiar. We can do a picture, and let's just go into our tape gun that we've been working on. We'll grab our first image, and what's key about this, and this is true for most programs, is that when we insert it, we can link it to the file. And this becomes really important, as you'll see here in a moment, because when we do updates to the Composer document, we can actually have all of our image output at once, and because they're linked to the file, all of our manufacturing documentation will update as well. So now we've got a nice clean image for our cover. On our second sheet, we want to be able to, leverage that parts list. So we'll just go ahead and insert as well. Place it on there. There's some nice shadowing and texturing there. So there's our parts list. And then we need to also complete our, let's complete our final step, our step 6, by inserting that last image as well. And so again, the idea here is that we're able to start leveraging the engineering documentation without having to worry about having a seat of SolidWorks, accidentally or changing the mates, changing the way that the definition, the product definition is set up. We're able to do that all on our own. But what's key about this, though, is that it's still connected. So if you think about this, let's go back into Composer, and let's say that engineering finalizes the design. Right? Engineering is going to finalize the design. We get maybe an email saying, hey, the design's done. We're going to get ready to move on this. What we have the ability to do now is just say, okay, that's great. Let's just go out and find the SolidWorks assembly that's been finalized, in this case the tape gun, and we're going to just have Composer update any of the images that we've created. So we'll just go ahead and say update, and it's going to go out, and again, you don't have to have a seat of SolidWorks on the computer. There's the converter is included with Composer. It's going to look at what's changed, whether that's geometry, whether it's metadata, meaning the descriptions, the part numbers, and things of that nature. Whatever it might be, it's going to go ahead and it's going to update our images for us and any of the saved states that we've done. We'll give it just a moment to complete. We'll see the result. Up here. The other thing that we can do then, once we've got this completed, is we can actually create some very nice interactive documents as well. So the ability to come in and actually create a way for an end user to interact with the end design that we've created is also available. So here you can see the conversion's done. Engineering added a final set of brackets and hardware, which you can see highlighted right here in our image. So again, we can just simply update that to reflect the change. We can also come down to we'll just look here at step 6. And in step 6, those components have been added as well. Maybe we just want to go ahead and include those in our exploded view. Maybe, it would be really up to us, but we could have the ability just to say, you know what, let's just go ahead and pull these items out. So we'll just include them as part of this step. And just to show off another piece of functionality Composer can offer is, up here we looked at adding a descriptive arrow, but likewise we could come in and say, you know what, let's just take these components and very simply create exploded paths. Composer will come out and actually place the exploded paths on there. And again, just like the arrows, we can clean those up a little bit by not having them sit on top of the components, right? So now we got a nice clean exploded view for this. We just simply do an update on our snapshot. By saving these images out then and overriding the other ones, we can have our Word document then update as well. Let's take a look at also adding in a little bit of interactiveness to this as well. So maybe we want to allow the user to click through some items, see the steps. And so here we're going to just come in and say, you know what, let's provide a next button for the end user. Let's also do a back or a last button. We'll author a way to get back to the initial screen. And then we'll do one last one. I've purposely kind of put these all over the place, and they're not sized equally, and that's okay. We can simply just come in and select each of them using standard Windows functionality. And let's just adjust their size so that they're all the same. And then let's also use a great technique that Composer has, which is to author a magnetic line. Magnetic lines are great because you can just basically draw one out on the screen and then snap the items into place. Okay? So maybe we'll just adjust this slightly so that we've got something that looks like that. That looks really good, and we can even go so far as to test this out in our design as well by going into a test mode. And so now I can see, all right, if I hit the next button, it takes me to step one. But it then kind of becomes painfully obvious that I have no way to get back or to go on to step two. That's okay, because Composer makes it really easy. We can just select each of these items. I can say, you know what, I want those same buttons to be in each of these views as well. Just select each of those views and want to tell it to update it. So now when I go into my test mode and I'm clicking on each item, I can actually go through each step sequentially and see how this is assembled. So I'm creating a little bit of interaction here for the end user and the manufacturing instructions. And why this becomes really nice or neat is that it can be viewed in a standalone player, or you can also, again, if we come into our Word document, it can actually be embedded directly in the Word document. So if we look at, if we come down here and we look at this item here, Composer can be embedded directly into Word. So we're just going to come into the properties, and maybe we'll turn off some of the toolbars just so, because we don't really need them. We've added our own already. We can just reference that Composer file. Here we'll browse to our desktop where I've got it stored. Grab the Composer file, and we'll go ahead and hit open. And hit OK. At this point, you can imagine having not only a great looking assembly instruction document for manufacturing, but that has been able to be done in parallel with what engineering is doing instead of it being a serial process. Hopefully you can see how you could get an earlier jump on this. But also we can include the same interactive content that we tested out in Composer can actually be included right in the Word document. So now an end user gets to the end page and he's able to actually click through each of the steps and see them. And not only that, he can actually rotate it, see the information, and if he wants to get back to the original page, he hits the home button. So it kind of gives you an idea that, hey, not only can we work in parallel with engineering, but as engineering makes changes, anything I've done in Composer is going to update, and I can just save those images back out. And in fact, let's do that. Right? We did make a change. We finish it up here. Back to this image here. Maybe we want to make sure that we don't have the buttons in there, so we'll just simply select them and hide them. And then we can go ahead and just save it out as our original. Now, it is possible to save all the images out at once, so that when it saves them all out, it just simply overwrites all the existing images. And in doing so, the next time that the Word document opens, as we'll take a look at here, close it so that it has a chance to update. When the Word document is reopened, any of the images that we've saved out and have been linked to will update as well. So there's the new component that engineering added at the very end of the design. So that kind of, hopefully, as I said, gives you an idea of how Composer can affect manufacturing, assembly instructions, things of that nature, especially if you're currently using, actually taking digital pictures or, you know, trying to adjust the engineering definition of the model in order to create the imagery that you need for Composer or for your documentation.